I still remember that electrifying moment as if it were splashed in neon across my very soul, the moment my wife told me she was done and was leaving, and I, with a heavy heart and a quiet, seething resolve, chose not to tell her about my $2 million inheritance. In those first 100 heartbeats, every dream we had shared, every silent sacrifice made for a secure future, crumbled into a cascade of bitter betrayal and fierce determination. Her words, uttered with cold finality, cut through the fragile trust between us. And in that instant, I made a promise to myself. I would let her walk away with nothing, preserving my secret fortune as both an act of self-respect and a catalyst for the new life I was destined to create. For years, I had believed that our marriage was built on mutual support, shared hopes, and a foundation of trust so strong that nothing could shake it. I had worked tirelessly, long hours, sleepless nights, and endless sacrifices, to ensure that our future and especially our sons would be secure. Every dollar earned was carefully saved, every investment calculated with the vision of building a legacy that would carry us into a bright tomorrow. I trusted her implicitly with my finances and with my heart, convinced that our collective efforts were paving the way for a future where our dreams would flourish. But that fateful night, when she simply declared she was done, shattered everything I believed in. I remember the dinner vividly, a quiet, intimate evening at our favorite restaurant, where we had once shared laughter, dreams, and the promise of forever. The soft lighting and gentle music that usually set a romantic tone were now drowned out by the harsh finality in her voice. "I can't do this anymore," she said, her tone devoid of the warmth I had come to associate with the woman I loved. The words hit me like a tidal wave. Suddenly, the plans we had meticulously crafted, the financial security we had painstakingly built together, all seemed to collapse into nothingness. I sat there, numb, as the realization sank in that she was leaving, not out of anger or a temporary lapse, but because she was determined to start anew without me. In that charged moment, as I grappled with the raw shock and overwhelming sadness, my mind raced with 1,000 questions. Why had she chosen to walk away from everything we had built? Was I not enough? Had I somehow failed in my duty as a husband and a provider? The answers eluded me, buried beneath layers of denial and hurt. But one thing was painfully clear: she was leaving and she would take no part of the life we had once envisioned. And so, with a heavy heart and an unspoken vow, I decided not to confront her. Not then, not in that moment of despair. Instead, I resolved to protect what I had built, to secure the future I had so diligently planned. I knew that the $2 million inheritance, a secret I had guarded with utmost care, was my last line of defense, a safeguard for the dreams of our son and for the man I was determined to become. That night, as I walked home alone under the flickering streetlights, I felt an icy resolve settle in my veins. Every step away from that painful dinner was a step toward reclaiming my own destiny. I replayed every moment, every subtle hint of discontent I had overlooked, and with each thought, my determination grew stronger. I realized that this wasn't just about money or a failed marriage, it was about my self-worth and the future I owed to myself and my child. I made a silent promise in the darkness: I would not let her betrayal define me. I would build a new life from the ruins of our broken promises, a life where my value was measured not by the words of others but by my own unyielding resolve. That promise, etched in the silent ink of a heart in pain, marked the beginning of a new chapter, a chapter where I would quietly secure the inheritance and use it as the cornerstone for a future built on strength, independence, and the relentless pursuit of my dreams. As the rain began to fall softly around me, I knew that every sacrifice, every tear shed in the wake of her departure, would one day pave the way for a future so bright and so wholly mine that even she, in her absence, would be forced to acknowledge the man I had become. In the weeks that followed that fateful night, I entered a period of relentless introspection and quiet, determined preparation. The shock of her departure still reverberated in my mind, but as the days passed, the searing pain began to crystallize into a resolute determination. I realized that my life, our life, was now mine to rebuild entirely. Every morning, I woke with a heavy heart yet an unyielding resolve. I found myself meticulously reviewing every detail of our finances, every record and bank statement that confirmed the misuse of our son's college fund. I spent long nights poring over documents, each page a testament to the sacrifices we had both made. The stark reality that the funds, painstakingly saved for our son's education, had been diverted for a reckless escape with her affair partner left me reeling. It was a betrayal so profound that it forced me to re-examine not only our marriage, but the very foundation of trust and responsibility that I had built my life upon. I began by creating a detailed timeline of every transaction related to the fund. With the help of a financial advisor, I documented each expense, from airline tickets and hotel bookings to lavish dinners that I never imagined would be associated with our family's future. Every figure confirmed the magnitude of the deception, and while each new discovery cut deeper, it also ignited a spark within me. I realized that my reaction to this betrayal would not be one of passive despair, but of decisive action. I resolved that I would protect our son's future at all costs, even if it meant severing ties with the woman I once loved. Quietly, I initiated legal consultations to understand my options and began the painstaking process of isolating our joint finances from what was now solely my responsibility. Each step was both a practical move toward financial recovery and an emotional declaration. I would not allow her betrayal to define our family's destiny. In the midst of these turbulent days, I found solace in the ritual of writing. Every evening, after the world around me had quieted, I would sit at my desk and let my thoughts flow onto paper. My journal filled with raw accounts of the disbelief I felt, the endless questions that tormented me, and the slowly emerging resolve to reclaim what was mine. I wrote about every sleepless night spent rethinking our shared past, the silent dinners, the hurried goodbyes, the subtle glances that now took on a new, painful meaning. With every line, I confronted my own vulnerabilities and acknowledged that I had been too trusting, too willing to sacrifice my own needs for the sake of our collective dreams. But rather than let those mistakes define me, I vowed to transform them into lessons. I started to see that every bit of pain was a catalyst for change, a necessary shock that forced me to reforge my identity out of the ruins of what had once been a cherished life. At work, the transformation was equally profound. I threw myself into my responsibilities with a level of intensity one had never known before. Long hours at the office, once a source of quiet pride, became a battlefield where I strove to prove my worth not only to myself but to an entire system that had once taken my contributions for granted. I led projects that pushed me to the limits of my creativity and resilience, determined to build a reputation that would overshadow the humiliation of my past. Every successful presentation, every contract won, felt like a victory not just for my career but for my very soul. My colleagues began to notice the change in me, a newfound confidence, a sharper focus, and an unspoken promise that I was no longer willing to be overlooked. Each accolade, each nod of approval from management, was a small, personal triumph that reinforced my belief that I could rise from the ashes of betrayal and emerge stronger than ever. But the professional victories, as significant as they were only part of the battle. Emotionally, I was undergoing a transformation that was as brutal as it was liberating. I sought out therapy with a counselor who specialized in the aftermath of deep personal betrayal. In our sessions, I poured out the raw, unfiltered truth of my heart, the long nights of self-doubt, the agonizing questions about my worth, and the profound sense of loss that had threatened to drown me. My therapist helped me to unpack the layers of pain and to see that her actions, as hurtful as they were, reflected more on her own internal struggles than on any failing of mine. Gradually, I learned to let go of the lingering resentment and to accept that while the betrayal would always leave a scar, it did not have to define me. Each session was a painstaking journey into the depths of my own psyche, where I began to rediscover the inner strength that had been dormant, waiting for a moment like this to awaken it. Outside the sterile walls of therapy and the relentless pace of work, I began to rebuild my personal life with deliberate care. I reconnected with friends who had always stood by me, the ones who had offered quiet encouragement in times of doubt, and who had never wavered in their belief that I was capable of greatness. Our gatherings, once overshadowed by the weight of unspoken sorrow, slowly filled with genuine laughter and the shared stories of overcoming personal hardships. I learned that true friendship is forged in the fires of adversity and that the support of those who truly care can be a powerful balm for a wounded heart. In these moments of reconnection, I realized that I was not alone in my struggle, that many had walked similar paths and emerged with a strength that was both humbling and inspiring. As I continued to navigate this complex web of emotional and financial reconstruction, I began to integrate new routines into my life. Mornings became a sacred ritual, a time for early runs along quiet, dew-laden streets, where the rhythmic pounding of my feet and the crisp, cool air helped to clear my mind and fortify my spirit. Those solitary runs were a meditation, a way to let the physical exertion transform the inner turmoil into a steady, resolute focus. I would return home, sweaty and introspective, to a breakfast that was both a simple pleasure and a symbol of my renewed commitment to self-care. Each day, I mapped out my tasks with precision, balancing long hours at the office with moments of quiet reflection and creative expression. The structure gave me a sense of control that I had not felt in months, a clear, deliberate path forward that reminded me that I was the master of my destiny. I also dedicated time to exploring new professional opportunities that would allow me to rebuild my career on my own terms. I attended industry conferences and networking events, where I shared my story with a blend of vulnerability and strength. I reached out to former mentors and colleagues who had always recognized my potential, and I sought advice on how to leverage my skills and experiences to create a future that was entirely mine. Each conversation, each new connection, was a small step away from the shadow of the past and toward a future defined by innovation and self-belief. I updated my resume, enrolled in specialized courses to enhance my expertise, and began applying for roles that promised not only better compensation but an environment of respect and integrity. The professional world, once indifferent to my quiet struggles, began to take notice of the transformation within me. Every job offer, every invitation to speak at industry panels, was a powerful validation of my worth, a declaration that I had not been diminished by betrayal, but had instead emerged more capable and driven than ever before. As I labored through these changes, I made a point to document every moment of progress. My journal, which had first been filled with tears and despair, gradually evolved into a comprehensive record of my journey, a testament to the strength I was cultivating and the new goals I was setting for myself. I wrote about the long, solitary runs that cleared my mind, the painstaking therapy sessions that taught me to value my own worth, and the professional breakthroughs that affirmed my belief in my own potential. Each entry was a stepping stone, a reminder that even the deepest wounds could serve as the foundation for a rebirth. The pages were filled with plans for the future, ideas for new ventures, and reflections on the lessons of resilience and perseverance. They became not only a record of my pain but a blueprint for the life I was determined to create. A life where every setback was transformed into a stepping stone toward success. In the midst of this personal renaissance, I began to see that my journey was also about reclaiming the narrative of my own life. I started speaking with close friends and trusted mentors about the betrayal, about how I was determined to rise above it and create a legacy defined by strength and independence. Their encouraging words, mixed with their own stories of overcoming adversity, helped to reinforce my resolve. I realized that I was not alone in this struggle, that many had faced similar challenges and emerged with a renewed sense of purpose. The collective wisdom of those who had walked the path before me served as a powerful reminder that every ending is merely the precursor to a new beginning. Slowly, as the months passed, the bitter sting of betrayal began to recede, replaced by a steady, quiet confidence. I saw tangible evidence of my transformation in the accolades I received at work, the growing trust of my colleagues, and the solidifying of my financial independence. Every upward trend in my performance metrics, every small victory, be it a successful project launch or a positive feedback session, was a silent, personal affirmation that I was building a future that was entirely my own. The man I once was, a man crushed under the weight of betrayal, was evolving into someone who not only survived the storm but harnessed its power to fuel a meteoric rise. Yet, even as I celebrated these professional and personal milestones, the emotional landscape of my life remained a delicate balance. There were still nights when the memories of her departure and the financial ruin she had inflicted on our shared future would haunt me, a sharp reminder of the vulnerability I had once experienced. In those moments, I turned to my therapy sessions and my journal, allowing myself to grieve and to process the lingering pain. I learned to accept that healing is not linear and that every setback, every tear shed, was part of the journey toward true self-discovery. With each difficult night, I grew more certain that my scars were not marks of defeat, but badges of honor, symbols of the battles I had fought and the resilience I had forged in the crucible of heartbreak. As I began to see my future take shape with a clarity that was both inspiring and humbling, I set new goals that reached far beyond the confines of my previous life. I envisioned a future where my professional success would not only secure my financial independence but also create opportunities for others, where I could mentor, lead, and inspire a new generation to reclaim their own self-worth after betrayal. I began drafting plans for projects that would harness my experience and my hard-won wisdom to drive meaningful change in my industry. Every new strategy, every innovative idea, was a bold step away from the past, a clear, deliberate move toward a future defined by my own standards and aspirations. I also realized that the journey of rebuilding was not solely about practical measures. It was about redefining who I was at the core. I rekindled my love for art and literature, finding that creative expression was a powerful antidote to the bitterness that had once consumed me. I attended poetry readings, visited art galleries, and even enrolled in a creative writing course, allowing myself to see beauty in the midst of chaos. These experiences enriched my inner world, giving me the strength to face the challenges ahead with a renewed sense of purpose and wonder. In time, the world around me began to mirror the transformation that had taken place inside. My colleagues who once dismissed my ideas now looked to me for leadership, and even distant relatives who had once mocked my quiet dedication began to recognize the unwavering determination that had emerged from the depths of betrayal. Invitations to speak at industry events and participate in panels began to pour in, each one a public acknowledgement of the man I had become. I shared my journey with authenticity and vulnerability, and every word resonated with those who had faced similar hardships. It was in those moments of public affirmation that I fully understood the magnitude of my transformation. I was not just rebuilding my life, I was redefining what it meant to be resilient, to be successful, and to rise above the most crushing of betrayals. In the months that followed the night she told me she was done, a slow, almost imperceptible transformation began to reshape my world. I had decided then, without her ever knowing about the $2 million inheritance I had quietly secured, that my future would be built on the foundation of my own worth, not on her rejection. I plunged into a new chapter of my life with a mixture of guarded sadness and fierce resolve, determined to prove that the life I envisioned was meant for me alone. Every morning, as the sun broke through the darkness with gentle rays that reminded me of a new beginning, I awoke with an unwavering focus. I had made a promise to myself on that painful night in our empty living room, a promise that I would not let her departure define me. I revisited the moments that had shattered my trust, her cold, dismissive tone as she uttered the words, "I'm done," the look in her eyes that held neither regret nor remorse, and the heavy silence that fell over our home as she packed her things. Instead of succumbing to despair, I began to see each of those moments as a catalyst for profound personal growth. I threw myself into work with a determination that bordered on obsession. The betrayal had ignited a fire inside me, a relentless drive to prove to the world that I was more than her dismissal. I took on challenging projects with renewed vigor, pushing myself beyond the limits I had once accepted. Late nights spent poring over strategy reports and endless revisions of proposals became my new normal. In board meetings, my ideas resonated with clarity and confidence, and slowly my contributions began to command the respect I'd long been denied. Every accolade, every nod of approval, was not just a professional victory, it was a declaration that I was reclaiming my identity piece by painstaking piece. At the same time, the secret of the $2 million inheritance, a hidden treasure that I had safeguarded away from her prying eyes, became a symbol of my newfound independence. I had discovered it in a twist of fate during a routine review of my finances, and rather than flaunting it or using it to force reconciliation, I chose to protect it as a seed for my future. That inheritance, untouched and secure, was a quiet reminder that I had something irreplaceable to build upon, a financial cushion that guaranteed my freedom to pursue the life I had always dreamed of, regardless of the wounds inflicted by her departure. I invested that money wisely, consulting with top advisors, diversifying my portfolio, and even putting aside a portion for future opportunities that I could shape on my own terms. Every positive fluctuation in my account balance felt like a vindication, a tangible testament to the fact that my worth was not diminished by her choices, but elevated by my ability to protect and nurture my own future. In the midst of these professional and financial battles, I also sought to heal the emotional chasm that her departure had carved in my heart. Therapy sessions became an indispensable refuge where I allowed myself to feel every ounce of hurt, anger, and eventual hope. With each session, I began to peel back the layers of betrayal and self-doubt, learning to see that my value was not defined by her inability to appreciate me. I confronted the painful memories, the late nights when I sat alone in our living room, the quiet moments of introspection filled with whispered questions of, "What did I do wrong?" And slowly I learned to let them go. I discovered that forgiveness, in its truest form, was not for her benefit but for my own liberation. I started to accept that while the scars might never fully fade, they could serve as powerful symbols of resilience, a reminder of the strength required to rebuild from ruins. Evenings, once shrouded in the ghost of her departure, began to take on a new hue. I returned to long-forgotten passions that had always brought me solace: writing, painting, and even playing the guitar. In the quiet solitude of my study, I let the creative process become my sanctuary. I poured my heart into writing long, raw essays that chronicled every twist and turn of my journey from devastation to determination. Each word was a healing salve, transforming the bitterness of betrayal into a tapestry of hope and renewal. I even started a blog sharing my journey with a small, supportive audience. The responses were both overwhelming and cathartic, strangers and old friends alike reached out with messages of solidarity, each story reinforcing that I was not alone in my struggle and that my pain, when shared, could become a beacon for others searching for a way out of their own darkness. As the weeks turned into months, I found that my inner world was gradually reconciling with my outward success. I began to establish a balanced routine that honored both my professional ambitions and my personal healing. Mornings were reserved for quiet reflection and exercise, solitary runs through early morning streets where the cool air and the rhythmic pounding of my feet allowed me to reconnect with the essence of who I was becoming. Those moments were deeply meditative, offering me a chance to sift through lingering doubts and affirm my resolve with every step. Afternoons were filled with work, intense, focused sessions where I applied the full force of my creativity and strategic insight to projects that pushed the envelope of innovation. And evenings became a time for gratitude and introspection, where I would sit in the soft glow of a desk lamp, reviewing the day's triumphs and setbacks in my journal. This routine, meticulously crafted and fiercely adhered to, was a daily testament to my transformation, a deliberate act of reclaiming my narrative and steering my future on my own terms. Professionally, I started to see the results of my relentless efforts manifest in ways that far exceeded my previous expectations. I spearheaded initiatives that not only enhanced the efficiency of our operations but also unlocked new markets and revenue streams. My ability to lead with clarity and empathy became evident, and my innovative proposals began to garner the attention of industry peers. I was invited to speak at conferences, where I shared my journey of resilience and the lessons I had learned from overcoming betrayal. Each presentation was not only a personal milestone but a public declaration that my worth was undeniable, that the trials I had faced had only strengthened my resolve to succeed. The transformation in my career was profound, a journey from being dismissed and undervalued to becoming a respected thought leader, a man whose ideas had the power to shape the future of my industry. Financially, the careful stewardship of my $2 million inheritance had opened doors to opportunities that I had never dared to imagine. I diversified my investments, ventured into promising startups, and even began exploring philanthropic endeavors that resonated with my core values. Every positive return on my investments, every new business opportunity that arose, was a step toward a future that was secure and self-sufficient. I was not just rebuilding what had been lost, I was constructing a legacy that would ensure my family's well-being for generations. The financial independence I achieved was a quiet, powerful affirmation that I was in control of my destiny, that I had the strength to rise from the ashes of betrayal and create a future that was unequivocally my own. Amid the whirlwind of rebuilding my career and finances, I also began to redefine my personal relationships. The painful rift that had been created by her departure gradually gave way to a more authentic network of support. I reconnected with old friends who had always believed in me, and I formed new bonds with people who valued honesty, resilience, and compassion. Our interactions were filled with genuine laughter, shared memories, and a mutual understanding that true friendship is forged in the fires of adversity. These relationships, deep and sincere, became the pillars that sustained me through the darkest moments and celebrated my smallest victories. In the warmth of these connections, I rediscovered that my worth was not contingent on the approval of someone who had once cast me aside, but was inherent in the bonds of trust and mutual respect that I now cherished. One particularly transformative moment came during a quiet dinner with a group of close friends. As we sat together, sharing stories of our own struggles and triumphs, I realized that my journey was not just about reclaiming what I had lost, it was about building something far greater than the sum of my past hardships. Their words, filled with empathy and admiration, reaffirmed my belief that my pain had been the catalyst for an extraordinary rebirth. In that moment, I understood that every betrayal, every tear, had served as a stepping stone toward a future that was rich with possibility. I was no longer defined by the failures of the past. I was defined by the unwavering strength that had carried me through, and by the vibrant, hopeful vision I now held for the days to come. As the seasons changed, I became increasingly deliberate in shaping my future. I set ambitious, long-term goals for my career, initiatives that would not only expand my professional influence but also leave a lasting impact on the industry. I meticulously planned strategic moves, sought partnerships with innovative leaders, and embraced new challenges that tested my abilities to their limits. Every step was a bold declaration that I was reclaiming my narrative, that I would no longer be held hostage by the scars of betrayal. Each new project, each successful collaboration, was a clear marker of my progress, a sign that I was not only surviving but thriving in ways I had once thought impossible. In the quiet moments of reflection that punctuated these busy days, I began to see the true value of the journey I had endured. I realized that the betrayal that had once threatened to shatter my world had, in fact, been a powerful impetus for transformation. The pain, as raw and bitter as it had been, was now the foundation of my resilience. A reminder that even in the face of the deepest wounds, the human spirit has the capacity to heal, to rebuild, and to soar. I documented every insight, every hard-earned lesson in my journal, a comprehensive record of my evolution that I could look back on and draw strength from whenever doubts crept in. Those pages, filled with long, thoughtful reflections and practical strategies for moving forward, became a treasure trove of wisdom, a personal manifesto that guided me through even the darkest nights. By the time I reached this point, a full year into my journey of self-reclamation, I had transformed into a man who could look back at the pain with a sense of calm acceptance and forward with boundless determination. The once crushing weight of betrayal had been replaced by a fierce, unyielding conviction that I was in control of my destiny. I had redefined success on my own terms, built a secure financial foundation, and nurtured relationships that uplifted my spirit. I was not the man who had once been diminished by her callous words. I was a man reborn, a man whose inner strength and resilience had turned every setback into an opportunity for growth. Now, as I stand on the cusp of a future brimming with promise, I feel an overwhelming sense of gratitude for every challenge that has shaped me. The journey, though long and fraught with pain, has gifted me with insights and strengths I never knew I possessed. I have learned that true power lies not in avoiding hardship, but in confronting it head-on, in turning every scar into a badge of honor that attests to the battles fought and won. My story, one of betrayal, heartbreak, and ultimate resurgence, has become a testament to the unyielding human spirit and a reminder that even in our darkest moments, we have the power to rise again.